Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. And this week, in episode 151, we'll be looking at high value moves that win ITF sparring matches. So we know about the idea of the Pareto principle, and that's that, 80% of the results come from 20% of the efforts. So what we're looking at is how does this apply in terms of the shot selection in ITF Taekwondo? Which of the shots that you throw and in which situations are going to get you those high value scores? The ones that all the judges see, all the judges reward, and the ones that are going to put a difference between you and your opponent on the scoreboard.
You just had a couple there that you could use. They're going to be the ones that you want to be able to have at least a couple of these, maybe not all of them. Now we are also taking, for the most part, headshots out of the equation because obviously they are the real high value scores. But other than general head kicks, which are 3 points in our style of ITF, what are the other techniques, moves, combinations, or even tactical decisions which give you the biggest bang for your buck, that if you can nail all these down, you're going to have the biggest advantage on your side?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with something that everyone should be fairly familiar with, which is the sidekick, but we're going to just make a little bit of a distinction and refer to this one as kind of the spear sidekick. Richie, do you want to explain what we mean by that?
Yeah, so this one is essentially like that stabbing motion, and that means that there's no real bend or there's no real kind of any way that this kick can be a little bit more vulnerable. It's real direct. There's no way of getting through it. It's completely straight, and it hits you real hard onto the belt. The hip is the longest distance possible. Kicks with sidekick with your opponent, and if you nail that right on the hip, the maximum distance that you have there, if every time you get it, because of the distance, the scores of the referee is very visible. Also very hard for your opponent to come through it, and it also absolutely nails them and puts them on the back foot as well.
At the longest target, then we're talking about from your side to their side, keeping the most distance. But I think what really kind of shines about this kind of shot is it gives room for the referees to see it. So it's not hidden by your opponent's body, by your turning, by anything like that. You've got a long straight line to the target. And I suppose with that same idea in mind, we're talking about long hands, body or head, but the idea of a long extended reach makes it very, very easy for the referees to see the score and credit the score.
Yeah, definitely, because 90% of the time when people are throwing hands, the other side is going to match you, and we will actually talk about that as well coming up. But because of this long direct one, usually from this a little bit of a further out range, we see Camille here jumping over the top. It's very visible, very clear, and it's a differentiator. And because of that, it sticks out in the minds of the referees who are scoring these in the corners, and it's very obvious. It's a clear differentiating shot, and it's not where we're just getting into hands and you're trading, I'm trading. It's just a clear differentiating shot, and that's the key. You need this in your back pocket. It's very handy to be able to use when you're trying to counter fight and move around, pull people onto you as well. So if you have this shot, whether it's the front hand or backhand, it is very valuable.
Yeah, and I suppose the analogy that we give is sometimes that, like in a basketball match, or if you're Irish in a hurling match, the score tends to stay pretty close between closely matched competitors a lot of the time. But then there are those moments. It's these differentiators we're looking for. What scores are going to be seen that allow you to creep ahead on the scoreboard and make it difficult for your opponent to catch up. So we're avoiding trading. We're looking for clear scores where you're getting something and your opponent isn't. So with that in mind, our next one is going to be full stop exits. And this, we take exit to mean a couple of different things. So yes, you could be exiting the ring and getting a score before you leave, but it can also be that you've just started an engagement and you're getting out of contact with a score. And in this case, we're looking at Ryan Shelley with a defensive sidekick, and obviously he's conceding a lot of ring position in doing so, but a nice clear differentiating score. And here we have Shimon Denishovitz, and again, really, really nice back kick. Again, does concede the ring, but very, very hard not to give the score on at least two of those scorecards. So it's a big, big deal.
Yeah, contact is a big factor in these full stop exits, because what does that do? It only creates a little bit more space between you and the opponent, which allows you to leave the engagement with the last score. So that's always been something that we've talked about with high level athletes in ITF, that they want to be first in, get that clear entry shot, and then they want to be first out of contact, not last out, because last means they're also trading with you. First out. And then that way you have the maximum advantage if you're matching in the middle. You have the entry shot and you have the exit shot as well.
Absolutely. And the exit shot is one of the most common ones, but it is a very valuable tool to have as long as you pick the right side of the body, is that what we call the decisive doleo. It's the one that sneaks on into the end where, okay, we probably have Dimitri here getting his value on his entry and maybe getting the score there. But that's a 1 point score from one or two judges. Whereas the turning kick on the end, if it's given on a scorecard or even maybe two, that starts to make a very, very big difference to how the scoreboard looks.
Yeah, absolutely. We see both guys here trading. Now, referee here steps in between it, but he still has that mindset that he wants to get the extra score. And that's, as we said, it very much touches on what we said earlier. That's the differentiator, because both guys are matching, that you need to be the one that gets the extra little bit, which gives you that advantage. And these are the moves and the strategies and the mindsets that put you ahead and give you the advantage to win matches in ITF.
Yeah, and with that mindset, I suppose, in mind, we then look at, well, what do you do to gain that extra edge? So looking beyond the first engagement to the next one and the one after. And one thing that you can potentially do is take your opponent's balance, because that's obviously going to move them towards the edge. It's going to mean that the next shot you throw is more likely to be successful. And we see a nice example of it here with Ziga throwing the hacks. And but what it does, or what it creates, is a situation where, in leaning back to avoid the hacks, Daniel ends up putting his weight into his back foot or into his heels, and it's very hard to reverse that situation. Once your heels are down,
we're going to have this position where your opponent catches you off guard, and because of that, then you're in what's called no man's land, where your feet are not set, and all you can do really is cover up and defend yourself, and that's a terrible position to be. So if you can actually put your opponent in these positions, that's fantastic for you. Usually it's going to be about momentum and pushing people back and gaining balance offsets as well, which is going to be the maximum return for you.
I'm trying to mute as we go. Lucy has decided to be very, very loud in the background, but what can we do?
Today.
Yeah. What can we do? The last one we want to talk about is the idea of the triple threat. So in terms of building a score, more than just that initial thing of what hits what, but can we improve our ring position, and can we add a warning or a foul into the mix as well? Most likely the warning.
Yeah, so here we see Axel in blue. He gets the back fist, which gives him a score most likely. He also gets his opponents to turn away, avoid sparring, which gives a warning on the other side, and he's now in a better ring position. Okay, so that's exactly what you want as many times as possible. If you can get this triple threat, you're laughing. You're in a good position.
It really is one where, you're thinking a little bit ahead, so what side of the body do you go to when you go to hands? What's going to improve your position? This becomes really, really important as you arrive towards the edge of the ring, where you want to improve your ring position, move back towards the center perhaps, as you do with the step under the leg, the x-ray, whatever we want to call it. But in terms of being able to then put pressure the opponent towards the warning, whether it's that they find themselves kicking towards your back, that they travel, or that they fall over, anything along those lines brings a big change, because you're putting an incremental score on the scoreboard as well. It's a third of a point on all four cards with that warning. So it's a very, very important thing to keep in mind the whole way through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Can agree. That I have to say that this is one of the big ones that you have to be able to find. If you can push people out, get them to fall over. Usually it's going to be an exit where you're pushing them out of the ring, or you're getting them to fall over. And you notice that kind of ties in a lot with a lot of the other strategies that we've said today. The likes of taking someone's balance, because of you doing that, because of you getting the exit shot with the full stop. These are all reasons that will help you get the triple threat as well, most likely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we're really thinking as we go through the the various different examples as we've got, we left out the head kicks. It's too obvious. We know if you're down scores, the easiest thing to do is go and kick the other person in the head. That'll probably fix it. But not everybody can do that, and you can't just decide to pick up your front leg and kick a person in the head more often than not. You're going to at least have to have your change of distance, your footwork. You're going to have to pull them into it, or you're going to have to land the hands first to be able to put the shot on the end. But there are other things we can do, and other shots that we can find, and situations we can lean into, where we can again make use of the what's visible to the referees, the kind of shots they like to see, that are easy to kind of push those buttons for, and that will help reset the match in your favor. So really keep an eye out for opportunities to do those. And the recap again as we go through it: that long spear sidekick, that long hands as well. What did we talk about then? We had the full stop exits.
Full stop exits. We also had taking balance. We had a decisive Doleo, and of course we had the triple threat, which kind of ties it all in together. Which
For sure.
that's going to be a byproduct of most of the other ones that we spoke about. That's why we left it at the end.
Absolutely. Yeah, so folks, let us know what you think of that. Are these tactics and strategies that you find yourself leaning into? Does kicking your opponent in the head, whenever you need to do it, seem like a realistic thing for you? Or like us, do you have to have other strategies to back that up? Let us know what you think and give us your suggestions in the comments.
Yeah, and we'll catch you in next week's video. We're going to be tackling, again, thinking of that 80-20 rule, some of the things that you need to nail down, but more of a broader principle kind of an idea. And we're going to tell you some of the things that are really, really important for being at a high level of ITF sparring.
All right, see you next time. Bye-bye, folks.